Rugby Chat. Tonight we're going to be talking about predominantly Super Rugby and the Africa Conference, previewing the Jaguares, Sharks, Stormers, Lions and Bulls. So do stick around for all of that. Hi, I'm Paul, the guy behind DrivingMaul, your best place rate predictions and opinions. And joining me this evening to do all of that discussion, I have Herman and John. How are you doing, sirs?
Very well, Paul. And you?
Good, but yeah, for some reason you're not coming through. Ah, there we go. That's better. Now I've got you on the in the old show. So obviously we're talking about that first, but a couple of news items to cover off on before then. Obviously we've got to pass our best wishes on to Fatih Lofa, who has had neck surgery after having his after having what's the word I'm looking for? I've gone blank. After having his neck surgery.
Yeah, I heard that they were very concerned. Has that been confirmed now? He's had surgery.
Yes, he's had surgery and he's awake and talking and lucid about it afterwards as well. For some reason, this unfortunately it works most of the time. For some reason, I've not got your pictures on screen. So hopefully we've got your voices, and that's all that really matters. Unfortunately, we'll miss out on your pretty faces this evening. So
you're going to get some complaint letters, let me tell you.
Yeah. And Paul,
you see, no, I would have complaint letters if it was the 1980s.
I go up 6 o'clock to shower to make myself beautiful for your show, and this is what you do.
8 o'clock, January, let me tell you, it's not a joke.
I understand. Yes, but we don't get to see his beautiful cardigan and all those other bits of him that are so what the craft beer and the beard, the single speed bike, and all of those other things that are all kind of hipster. That clearly Herman's our resident hipster.
The boy with the dragon nose.
The dragon nose. I'm not sure where you're going with that one at all, but anyway. So so all our best wishes for Fatih Lofa. It sounds like he's come out of surgery well. He hasn't had any broken bones. What he's had is bruising of the spinal cord, which obviously and swelling, which could cause problems. But thankfully, as I say, it sounds like the operations has gone well with him.
I haven't seen the incident. Can you give us a brief outline there, Paul? What occurred?
I'll be honest, I didn't see it either. Herman, do you see the incident?
No, I have no idea. I have no idea what you're even talking about. Actually, I haven't read any rugby news the last 2 days.
So Fatih Lofa was in a very bad. I think it was a tackle in British Rugby in the Premier League. Is that right?
That's correct.
English Rugby, right?
Yep.
And he was rushed to hospital with a very serious neck injury. So I'm really glad to hear that there's nothing broken there.
Good.
So for some reason the Skype interface isn't working. So at the moment, folks, I know you're asking me to turn the sound up for the boys. Basically, what's happening is it's going through the speakers and back into the microphone. So all a bit low tech this evening. I'm not sure why the Skype interface isn't working. Sorry, folks, I'll have to look into that.
You want to dial us in again, mate? Would it help?
No, I think I'll probably have to reboot the whole computer and everything. So I think it'd be one of those sort of problems. So we will battle through. And I'm sorry if the guys are a little bit quieter than I am. Maybe I should actually sort of just talk quietly or talk further away from the microphone. And maybe that'll get us both a bit more even.
And most importantly, Paul, you should not talk so much at all.
Everybody's here to do it. It's my show. It's my channel. It's about me.
When it's going to start the show here, it's 10 minutes in here, You're still... I'm just
dear me. So look, when I get famous guests, then I'll let them speak. When I have people like you guys who no one knows, then I'll speak as much as I like. Sticking with British or English rugby, Saracens. Nigel Ray has.
Your podcast, didn't you?
Nigel Ray is. I'll fight on about this news story. Nigel Ray is retired from the CEO of Saracens, and immediately as he does so, his replacement, the guy who comes in, makes massive apologies and starts saying, sorry, we did it wrong, and we must make changes to get back under the salary cap.
Yeah, maybe they had a little bit of an open relationship with the truth when they first started commenting on the breaching of the salary cap.
Yeah, look, Nigel Ray is clearly a very successful guy who's used to getting his own way. And so, yeah, I don't
you
think...
mean who's used to getting his own way?
A millionaire, yes, exactly. A millionaire who's just getting his own way. So, surprise, surprise. So, yes, it's... at least there seems to be some common sense. Saracens will be heading in the right direction now. Way, way, way after the horse has bolted, clearly. But it's going to be interesting to see what happens there. Their fine is being split evenly between the other 12 teams. And considering that 11 of those 12 teams make a loss, it's not a surprise that they took the cash, folks. Everyone's like, they should have given it to charity and all this kind of stuff. It's wrong they've taken the money. No, they all make a loss. Of course they're going to take the money.
And as the business as a whole of rugby, since the Premiership overall is making a loss, it makes absolutely no sense to give away £5 million.
Yep, exactly. The only team that does make a profit is Exeter Chiefs, and they have said that their money will go into their foundation or into their charity. So the Exeter Chiefs charity. So obviously they'll do good work around Exeter, but yeah, they're the only side that actually makes a profit. So they're the only side that can really afford it, for that. So yeah.
Sorry, let me ask you a question, please, Paul. As somebody who's not clued up on Northern Hemisphere rugby like you are, basically because I don't need something to go to sleep, but but if all of these clubs, barring Exeter Chiefs, which is membership owned, isn't that correct?
That is correct, yes.
Yes. So that means the vast majority of these clubs are owned by millionaires, right?
Yep.
Millionaires, maybe, right? So if they are all making a loss, that means that the financial model, whatever is being paid to these players, including players from the Southern Hemisphere, including players from island teams, etc., from island nations, that financial model is not sustainable if these clubs weren't basically vanity projects for these billionaires, right?
Well, yes and no. Yes, there is definitely that side of it, and the other side of it is that they see potential for these companies to make money, for these teams to make money in the future. So it's an investment now for return in the future.
The value of the clubs has increased the last 10 years. Even if they're making bad business, still the value of the clubs keep going up.
Yep.
So they're looking at capital gains, if not profit, net overall profit.
Yeah. Or net cash flow profit, yeah.
Net cash flow profit. Okay. I just, we have this problem, for instance, in football, where I think it's quite reasonable for UEFA to require teams to be financially viable for the long-term health of the game. Because if there's a terrible downturn in the economy and billionaires then decide, I'm not going to prop up this team, I'll honor the contracts that I've signed, but once that's over, I'm not pouring money in, then the edifice will come crashing down. So some kind of fiscal discipline here is not, it's not unreasonable, right? And I'm just wondering how long this model will continue, where people will continue to, like Boyadal at Toulon and all of this will just keep on pouring cash into these teams.
Well, yeah, I mean the CDC have come in, and obviously they see potential for increasing the growth. And I think, and I'm doing a 3-part series on Fiore's only called "Times They Are Changing," which is looking at what I think is going to be the big changes driven predominantly by CDC over the next 2 to 3 years. So I think that's, it's, people see a lot of potential for some reason, and it's a matter of who is going to be the first to actually really sort of figure out and maximize that potential.
But I want to add to that, John. Like the French league is a little bit. There's a lot of misconceptions going on about the French top league and French clubs. Yes, there are lots of billionaires owning them, but lots of the French clubs are making profit. That's a profitable league for the top 14. So we tend to forget, when we criticize the French because they disrespect the test rugby, but they have by far the oldest and best working domestic league in the world. And their fans love their domestic rugby. They have by far the highest crowds and everything. They play 26 regular season games every year. I mean, it's really ingrained in the culture. And some of them making good money too. Of course, the French TV league is massive.
Is it okay? So it is TV rights that makes them profitable, right?
Yeah, that's one cornerstone, but they have good crowds too. There are many French clubs. Every game is sold out. Look at Toulon, how they build up the stadium. Burchella put in a lot of money in it, but also they make a profit too.
Okay.
They do.
And then how big are these stadia that they have in France?
That's the good thing about that. I think they're reasonably sized, so they are mostly between 15 to 25,000. So they're like good sizing for rugby, So instead of, but I always thought that helped create like this Super Rugby's dying feeling that we're playing in these giant stadiums. It makes, even if there's 10,000 there, it looks like no one cares and it's no atmosphere whatsoever. It's the stadiums are in Super Rugby way too big, and that helps to contribute to the feeling that Super Rugby is dead.
Yeah.
Yeah, and a lot of these stadiums only get filled once or twice a year for international games.
Yeah.
Basically.
That used to be. This is the thing, and I know I don't want to distract from your agenda there, but the sad thing is that these massive stadia, and let's be honest, the massive stadia are by and large in South Africa, the 50,000 plus seats.
No, Australia too.
Yes, but I'm saying you've got I just off the top of my head, Loftus, Ellis Park, Kings Park, Nelson Mandela Bay, Cape Town International Stadium. I'm already running into a second hand here, right? And but sad thing is that 15 years ago, they would have been 65% full, 70% full, on average, right? With a packed house for an important game or a big rivalry or a playoff, right? And the sad thing is that population is climbing, but attendance is dropping. Anyway, but let's continue. We can maybe address that later.
Yeah, you're right. I mean, and it's one of the reasons why I've had to sit down with Sky TV and had a chat with them about how they can, before Christmas, saying, look, here's how I think we can grow the game. So hopefully they'll take some of that on board. I've deliberately hunted out the New Zealand digital guys on LinkedIn and make sure they all see my posts, whether they like it or not. So by tagging them. We do need to get into there and help them and get that understanding going. What else we got going? So final sort of news item I've got anyway is that the Brumbies have had to, or not had to, have jumped from the
from Canberra.
Yeah,
from Canberra due to the smoke.
From Canberra due to the smoke, and so that has been you got to see. From what I read, the bushfires are going to be going for another 3 months before the weather cools down. Canberra, is apparently got the worst air quality in the world at the moment. It's obviously it's of minor importance compared to people's houses getting destroyed and all the wildlife that's getting killed. But we could see an impact on Super Rugby from these fires as well.
The human death toll is climbing.
I mean, it's super tragic, and my thoughts really go out to its people who are affected by these fires. But I'm sorry, I'm thinking like a very dark joke thought every time I read about these bushfires. Should I invite you people to my sick mind? Because Israel Folau obviously pointed out by bushfires started, So you boys need to zip it up, stop all these gay sex action down there in Oceania. God is not approving.
Jeez, and I thought we'd been able to move on from all of that.
Yeah, that's a segue.
Well, it just bringing it around a little bit to give an idea. Those of your listeners who are not in New Zealand or Australia might not realize how far away New Zealand is from Australia. New Zealand is a 3.5-hour flight. Am I right? Yeah. So from Auckland to Sydney is 3.5 hours across the southern Pacific Ocean. It's a massive difference. You think how far you fly 3.5 hours across Europe, right?
But it's the West Island, isn't it? I thought always you have a South Island, North Island, and you have a West Island.
If you ask people from the South Island of New Zealand, South Island is called the South Island, the mainland, and the North Island is the North Island, and Australia is the West Island. But the point that I'm making is, even though it's a 3.5-hour jumbo jet flight away, our skies are affected by the smoke. That is how unbelievable the scale is of these fires in Australia. I was just up the top of a trail called the Hakaramata Trail this evening, and I've never seen visibility so poor in the distance in New Zealand as it is. It's got a haze like Los Angeles across the skyline, which New Zealand never has, right? And I can't say that anymore because. So you think of the thousands of kilometers that have been covered with smoke, and you get an idea of the scale of vegetation that must be burnt to generate a cloud trail, a smoke trail that would cover that kind of distance across the ocean.
When you see the amount of area and overlaid onto other countries, you're looking at sort of half of England has been burnt.
Yeah, but
it's
just
nuts.
to fill you in, guys, I'm here in Europe. This is big news in Europe too.
Right? Is it?
Yes, it is. So I think our European listeners are well aware of this.
Yeah.
It's on the front page every day on BBC and Guardian and stuff like that. So
but it is.
I did. There have been shots of the New Zealand skyline and the Auckland skyline being affected.
That's not big news in Europe.
Yeah. No, but I'm just saying for people, it's not close. It's very far. It's like saying there's a fire in.
We get it, John.
Let's say there's a fire in I don't know, Poland, and Ireland is being affected.
Yep, it's been nuts. And I mean, it's to the stage where my kids we came inside and stayed inside because of the air quality and because of what was going on. Yeah, it's nuts. So yeah, our thoughts go out to them, but and also I guess it is going to impact Super Rugby as well when there's a good chance it will do when it kicks off as well. The embraces a bit.
You know what I'd love to see when these fires are resolved, whether games could be taken to some of these communities, right? I know you've got agreements in stadia, but is it at all possible to take some of the Australian games to some of these communities? I don't know if that's possible, but that's just a thought.
Yeah, or whether it's a distraction to what's rebuilding that's going on in some cases as well. Be careful, because say a lot of their infrastructure will be destroyed.
I think with a little bit like a Chrysler situation, fixing rugby games is not going to be top of the list.
Yeah, but Christchurch was really helped by the success of that Crusaders team. Just to lift the spirits of the people, just to give them some hope.
But you can see to this day that Christchurch community is not prioritizing rugby still.
Yeah. Anyway, sorry, we've really gone off track there. You were going to say, mate. You thought you were having your own podcast, but
No, it's good. Well, that's all good. Now we can get on to the Africa's conference and have a quick and go through those. Herman, you're someone who keeps an eye on the Jaguares, which is why I've asked you on this week. And Jaguares obviously topped the Africa conference last year. Going towards this year, we've got names such as Thomas Lavanini has left, Legosmon, Matera, Landajo, Ingleses, Moyano,
Yeah.
have all kind of left.
Yeah.
How do you see, or what do you think of the Jaguars going into the season?
Well, Matera is going to be a huge loss. He's going to be very hard to replace. I mean, he was probably he and Ardi Savea was probably the two best players in Super Rugby last season. They don't have anyone in the wings waiting to replace him just like that. But apart from that, I mean, yeah, Lavanini cleaned up his act, but I think otherwise I can only see Jaguars generally grow because they're sitting in a very nice position, being the only professional team, and they can suck all talent. They have no competition whatsoever for the talent around Argentina. And now with the setup that they have playing in the Curry Cup too, with the Jaguars 15, we have the Argentina A, so they're having a nice structure there right now. And for the Jaguars, when this, I mean, they will do very, very well this season, I think, especially also giving Quesada another year at the helm, who also proved himself right away to be a very shrewd tactician and motivator for the players. So, I told him a weak moment before the call I took a month ago, something like that, but I thought the Storm is going to make a miracle this year and win. But if I'm really serious, I probably predict Jaguars going to win Super Rugby this year, actually.
Well, wow. So we'll get on to Stormers later. But you do look at this kind of side. Obviously, you've got players still around like Augustin Creevy, who's getting on a bit. He'll probably start taking a lesser role with Montoya coming through. I was listening to a podcast earlier today from the Fantasy Rugby podcast, or the Fantasy Rugby Draft podcast, and they had the guy from South America talking through the team. And one of the big points he made was is he thinks that we're going to see an upsurge or an uptick in the scrummaging because of the forwards coach they've got there now. And let's suppose that was that was the Achilles heel of the Jaguars last year, wasn't it? Or the last few years recently has been their scrum. If they can improve their scrum, then yeah, this team has got it all really.
Yeah. And but the reason why I understand in Argentina why their scrum has gone backwards, we got to admit, because it wasn't that long time ago we all considered them being the king of the hills when it comes to the scrumming. They changed the rule. They had like a couple in a period of, I think it was about 1-2 years. They had like 3-4 really serious neck injuries with young players. So they changed the local scrum law, the local scrum in the local game. So it's a much less competitive, much less brutal than it is at senior test level, Super Rugby level. And they obviously are paying the price for that now. And because these guys coming through aren't as battle hardened.
Yeah, it's a bit of a trade-off, isn't it? Because if you don't address that, first of all, your number one priority is the safety of the players. So you can see that being important to you. You want to protect people's lives and their futures. But secondly, if it's too much like that, you turn players off. And you turn mothers off. And then players who, and let's be honest, in Argentina, the number one sport is going to be soccer. But, but the players that are big, right? You don't see rugby-sized players in football. So the players that are big and strong, their mother's going to devote them into something else if there's a lot of danger. I would say that there is one thing that is lacking in the Jaguares team. And first of all, I take my hat off to them because in the space of 3 or 4 seasons? How many seasons have they been in Super Rugby? 4 seasons. In the space of 4 seasons, they went from total newbies, so not even the performance of the Lions coming back into Super Rugby, where they also did this tremendous Cinderella act. But the Jaguars is even more impressive on 2 fronts. First of all, because they had 0 previous experience. At least the Lions had some people in the administration and some players who had played Super Rugby before. The Jaguars came from nowhere. They also have just the most ridiculous travel schedule, which is not spoken about in New Zealand. I mean, New Zealand would moan because some team doesn't have to play all the New Zealand teams and And they say nothing about the fact that the Jaguares, every away game is across an ocean. Every away game, right? So New Zealand, blah, 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 the teams complain. Meanwhile, Auckland drives 2 hours down the drag and they play, the Blues play the Chiefs, for instance. So they've overcome a huge intellectual knowledge-based deficit on playing this tournament. They've also overcome by far, even more than the South African teams, a travel disadvantage to, within the space of 4 seasons, make the final, right? So they have done very, very well. But what they have lacked and what stood out for me last season, most of all, is leadership. Because Matera, he is comfortably, if not in the top 10 rugby players of the world last year, at least in the top 20, right?
Yep.
And you can't replace that sheer talent unless you have some stellar youngster that we don't know about. But I was not impressed with his on-field leadership because so many times they were let down by their discipline.
But it was actually better last year. It was way. I mean, that was, for me at least, was one of the big talking points. They improved a lot for discipline.
But that's comparing 1 turn to 2 turns.
Not really, actually. Look at the stats. They did way better. I mean, when you really realize that things have turned around for Jaguars was when they played the Hurricanes away in Wellington.
Yes.
And you could see clearly that the referee was starting helping the Jaguars after a while because he lost his temper with the Hurricanes player because they were bitching back so much. And then you realize, oh, this is a turning point for the Jaguars. And a New Zealand ref in New Zealand have enough of his New Zealand players, like, and he started to support him. It was beautiful to see.
The Hurricanes' discipline is also terrible. The Hurricanes' discipline is terrible, right? But I'm talking about even in that final, and let's be honest, you know, the travel after playing their semi, the travel was, they were always behind the 8 ball. But in the final as well, you're playing the Crusaders after a travel week in the final. You cannot give them a sniff of anything. And there just were these lapses. Look, let's be honest.
But the bomb free tries, remember, John, they have 2 tries, like proper bomb tries, Jaguars in that final. Proper bombing tries, you know, they should have done it. So I mean, Crusaders were the better team at the end of it, but Jaguars wouldn't have taken that much luck for them to win that game. And second thing is, Crusaders was just lucky to be in the final. It should be the Hurricanes who should have been in Buenos Aires playing that final, unless the referee had turned a blind eye to Sam Whitelock in the semifinal in the last minute. You remember?
Oh, that's fighting talk there. Just all you Crusaders fans, Paul's email address is as follows.
But I can go for it. I can itch up the Crusaders fans even more. But they were pretty lucky when they won against the Lions in 2016 too. Everything fell their way in that game. Everything fell in their way that game.
Yeah, but look, barring the red cards, the Lions were the better team on the day. But the red card is the red card, you know. So anyway,
Ackerman made the biggest mistake benching Faf de Klerk in that game. That was the most stupid decision Ackerman made in his whole coaching career, in my opinion. But as soon as Faf de Klerk came into that game, Crusaders were on the ropes.
Yeah. So getting back to the person who thinks that this is his YouTube channel. My hope is that whoever takes over as captain will have the ability to rein in some of this Latin temperament. There's no doubt when the Latin temperament is running, then it's a beautiful thing to see. But rugby is very much an ebb and flow game, and when it's going against you, you've got to hold your temper, you've got to hold your discipline, and wait for the tide to turn, right? And they need a strong leader that can say, hey, Lavanini is a great example. I mean, he did improve his discipline, but then in the World Cup, he was terrible. I mean, it's like the complete brain fart that he had. And somewhere along the line, he needed to be pulled up 5 years ago, right? And
but
anyway,
also, I think
you're right that the Jaguares could go a very long way.
But you guys know it better who have played rugby much more. And leadership leadership too. Yes, it's very important to have a captain, but I think at the end of the day, the real leadership got to come from a coach, because it's the coach who decides who are the captain and who actually sets like the real discipline for the team.
But
and it's so obvious for me. I look at when Quesada is coaching these players, they are super structured. They're keeping the discipline well. It was actually it started to get a little bit better than now I got a brain fart there. What's the name of Argentina Pumas coach? Ledesma. Yeah. But the discipline got a little bit better when he took over Jaguars, but you can see I'd say they have too few coaches who really can get these players to buy in to stay disciplined, But Quesada obviously did, because I think you're wrong about Jaguars from last season. They were one of the better disciplines in the competition last year.
Okay, sorry to interrupt conjecture with some stats here for you, but I've just pulled up the Opta stats now, and admittedly I've just realised I pulled up the stats prior to the final. So the Jaguars will have played 2 more games than some of these other teams, but the Jaguars conceded 183 penalties prior to the final last year. Only the Sunwolves 187 conceded more penalties. Now, as I say, there is a quarter final and a semi final in this, so they played 2 more games.
I got sorry to interrupt right away, because the other 2 teams with the most penalties are Hurricanes and the Crusaders. It's obvious that the best teams are playing cynical and taking easy penalties.
Okay. Then on the yellow card point of view, they gave up 11 yellow. Sorry, they got 6 yellow cards, 0 reds. Other teams, Brumbies also got 6. The Rebels got 8. Reds got 6. Stormers got 6. Sunwolves got 10. So that puts them in that those are the other teams that got 6 or more. So so from a card point of view, they're in the same sort of territory as the Brumbies, Reds, and Stormers as far as the discipline goes. So at the lower end, but not, as you say, outstandingly bad.
Can I answer Mim's question about leadership?
Yep.
And I can answer it with an example, but not with an explanation. I wish I could give you an explanation, but it is a little bit almost mystical, almost magical, the importance of leadership in a rugby game, because as opposed to games where there is pauses in play, long pauses and then short bursts of action, something like an NFL game or a cricket game, where you would think that a captain who is moving players around like a cricket captain would have far more effect. The intuitive thought is that a rugby game, which is happening so fast and is constantly moving and is constantly, when the ball is in play, you would think that the captain doesn't have such a big effect. But there's 2 examples that I would like to give you to give you an idea of how important the captaincy is. One is a friend of mine went to visit West Point, the U.S. Army training college in, I think it's in Virginia, right? Yep. And that's where all the officers go in the U.S. Army. Very famous college, right?
Yep.
They do a degree there. And he went to visit it, and he did a tour, and the guide took them around the tour, incredible campus, blah, 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 blah. And he got to the sports field, and the guy, and this is an ex-South African, and the tour guide said, here you will see the cadets, that's what all the students are called, cadets, are playing a game. You may not be familiar with this game, but this is the game of choice at West Point, because we believe it is the game that most resembles combat, and that the enemy is constantly coming at you. It also most resembles decision-making under fire and the requirements of leadership in combat, and they were playing rugby.
Yep.
Right?
Yep.
So there's one example. The second example I give you is a practical one, and that is the ending of Francois Pienaar's international career in '96. So prior to him being concussed in the second test of the All Black Tour of South Africa, the All Blacks had played 3 hours of rugby against South Africa, including the World Cup final in '95. They had not scored a try. And this is almost unheard of in All Black rugby, to not score a try for 3 hours against an opponent.
Yep.
They played 3 hours of rugby scoring a try. Francois Pienaar gets carried off the field on a stretcher, concussed. In the next 20 minutes, they scored 3 tries. Now, you cannot say for 3 hours that Francois Pienaar made every try-saving tackle and stopped them from scoring. But there is something about leadership in rugby that cannot be explained. Graham Henry said that, I think it was Graham Henry, who said of Richie McCaw that when he's on the field, every other player plays 1 to 2% better when McCaw is on the field than when he's off. He has this effect that everybody steps up a little bit better. And I wish I could explain to you how it works, but it certainly does. And one of the areas is that it brings a certain level of, a great leader on a rugby field brings calm and brings clear decision making, and you tend to see guys not making stupid brain fart decisions that lead to easy penalties or yellow cards and stuff like that. Anyway.
Yep.
So I think what we can say out of this is that we still think the Jaguars are going to build on last year. They're not a team that's going to disappear. That wasn't a flash in the pan, and we're not seeing a mass exodus that we're seeing from some of the other teams. So
no, yeah. I want to. Sorry, continue.
So moving on to the next team in the Africa Conference, and the team that came second.
No. But don't continue, because I want to add one thing about Jaguars. I thought you were going to talk about the Jaguars. That's why I told you to continue.
Go on. Last point in the Jaguars, then we can move on.
I'm going to make it quick, but I think an important thing to everyone who watches every single game with the Jaguars know they missed one of their best players last season with coming back to it. It's Bestrano, with the scrum half. And he only played in the Curry Cup, and he ripped it up in the Curry Cup completely. And the only reason why they couldn't put him into the Pumas in the World Cup was because he just had too little game time at the highest level. But he will be back again, and he makes such a difference to that team. So I think if he plays this season, it's going to be a very good sign. Because I think Kubeli was like the weak link both in Pumas and Jaguars last season, for me, that is.
Yep. No, you're right. He's like a new signing, as you say.
Yeah,
the rest of the rugby watchers in Super Rugby could do far worse than having the Frog Warriors as their second team. Because not only do they have to overcome all these obstacles, these logistic obstacles, but they also play really good rugby. They really do. They play admirable rugby.
They do. Now, a team that historically isn't known for its admirable rugby is the Bulls, who came second to the Jaguars in the conference last year, 10 points behind them. And one of the South African teams actually keeping its head coach. We've still got Poet Homan is going to be the head coach there.
Yeah, going to have to help you with that pronunciation.
I was going to say, pronunciation, please.
Porter. Yeah, like you would say, ta. Porter.
Yep. Next, and Human. Right then.
Okay.
So
let me tell you that Porter is a nickname. It means feet.
Feet. Okay. There we go.
Means feet. Yeah. So you probably got big feet, and so it probably can't.
We're not going any further. This is a family show.
What they say about guys with big feet.
Anyway,
look, big shoes.
They cost them lots of money. One of the things about the South African sides, they've not actually announced their squads yet, which is just nuts when we're only a couple of weeks away. But we do know who's left. So the exit list from the Bulls is pretty hefty. Sharp Bricks is retired, so no red cards and no fights. That'll be good. Ludiaga, RG Stamen, Eli Stamen, Andre Strazen, Jason Jenkins, basically all 5 of their locks have left.
Wow. It's insane.
Dwayne Vermeulen is also gone.
Pollard is gone.
The
Creel is gone.
There we go. Pollard is gone. Jesse Creel is gone, as you say. There's been a massive exodus of players post Rugby World Cup, and even though they've got the same coach, this is looking like a very big rebuilding job for the Bulls this season.
Yeah, and look, let me give you a little bit of background about Puta Human. Puta Human was one of South African rugby 98, 90s, real traditional hard men. So he played for the Eastern Province, which is now the Kings area in Port Elizabeth, and he was known as a Currie Cup level player that was as hard as nails. Right? So if you had put a human at flank in your team, you play blindside, although in those days it was mostly left and right in South Africa. But if you had him in your team, you may not win the game, but you're certainly going to win the fight. So Puta Human is not, he doesn't carry a reputation, and I'm sorry if I'm misjudging him, as an intellectual, deep tactical rugby player, a rugby thinker, right? But to be fair to him, I would have thought the same thing about Johan Ackermann, who turned out to be an incredible, deep thinking and skillful coach when it came to attack. So, yeah, you got to feel for the Bulls fans. I mean, they've lost their whole engine room of their pack, and they've lost their field general in Pollard, and one of the understated players of the World Cup, and really who didn't get the kind of credit that was probably his due, was Pollard. It's essential. I mean, he scored a bag load of points in that final and controlled the game beautifully. So, yeah, it doesn't look too rosy for the Bulls.
Yeah, so I think we are, and in the live chat, Unbiased Rugby says he thinks the Bulls are going to battle this year. Unbiased Rugby is a Bulls fan, and Bray also says that he thinks the Bulls are going to suck this year. Bray also gives a bit of correction corner. He says that what means claws, not feet. But anyway, I'll leave you South Africans to fight that out.
Might be wrong, but I didn't think so. But hey, I'm not an Afrikaans first language speaker, so I could be wrong.
Certainly sound like one.
No, and if I were Afrikaans first language speaker, then I would be in my arse all the time. Right.
Yes, that's. So the Bulls.
I'm not a first language Afrikaans speaker.
So the Bulls, we think, is going to be a rebuilding year and a bit of a struggling year. As Unbiased says, if the Bulls make the playoffs, it'll be seen as a successful year. I think that is very true.
I think that's very true.
They
would either have to win that division, which is highly unlikely, or they would need to be one of the top finishers. So that would be a very successful season.
Yeah.
So the team that came in third last year were the Sharks, a team on 37 points, so 51, 41, 37. So quite a long way behind the Jaguares, let's be honest. A team that had lots of skill on paper, but didn't seem to put it together on the park. And we've seen that has led to Robert Dupree, the coach, being released.
Yeah.
And Sean Everett has stepped up as the new head coach. Does he? He's not a coach I've heard of, but he's from within the Sharks franchise.
I do not know enough about him to be able to tell you whether or not he's got what it takes. I will say this though, and this is a controversial statement, but think about it, that over the last 2 years, the previous 2 seasons, the most talented squad in Super Rugby was not the Crusaders, it was the Sharks. And if you think that I'm exaggerating, remember they had Willie Leroux, they had Lukanya they had Esterhuizen, they had Kobus Reinach at one stage, who was the third choice scrum half. These are all players in the squad that won the World Cup. They had really good locks. They had the Beast. They had so much going for them in that team.
Most Dupree's brothers were really good too.
What's that? And yes,
maybe not like this. There's only actually Springboks.
That's right, and I'm still there's still some story behind why at least one of the Dupree brothers wasn't at that World Cup. I don't know what the story is. I don't know if it's all injuries or there's something else going on there. I'm 100% sure, but certainly athletically, they were the match of. They were those two boys athletically. I saw them growing up, and those two guys are probably the two guys that athletically are on the same level as Peter Steph Toy. So they had all this talent within that franchise, but they were shockingly coached.
Yeah.
And every now and again, you would see the quality when they would, for instance, travel to
they were the only South African team who regularly have been winning in New Zealand.
That's right. And they were the only team that went to the Crusaders, and the Crusaders had to come from behind to draw that game against the Sharks. And that particular day, the Crusaders pack got dealt to by the Sharks pack. And they need a coach. That's what they need.
They do.
They need
now,
a really good coach to bring out of them what they've got.
One of the issues they had with their coach was that obviously he was the father of 3 players. Now, those 3 players are amongst this list. I'm now going to read you of players who have left the team, the Beast, Osterhazen, Van der Meer. Osterhazen's gone to Shell Sharks. Ruan Botha, Collenberg, Jean-Luc Dupria, Shell Sharks, Jacques Newland, Dan Dupria, Shell Sharks, Philip van der Walt to Newcastle, Robert Dupria, Shell Sharks, Andre Esterhazen
all 3 brothers. Yeah.
All 3 brothers to Shell Sharks, Andre Esterhazen to Japan, Corbus van Wink to the Hurricanes, and then 2 of their fullbacks actually. Well, but I don't think they've gone to the Chiefs and Southern Kings. So that's a big loss. But yeah, the whole Dupria family have been shipped out.
The Beast has gone to the States. He's retired from international rugby. He's playing in the States. Yeah.
And that's an awful lot of experience that's left. And to me, again, it looks like another rebuilding process, perhaps not in the same way as the Bulls, which is mainly around the engine room, but around the leadership in this team.
All respect to Unbiased Rugby. I watch his show, but I think just avoiding being the worst team in Super Rugby this year would be a success for the Bulls, because this is unprecedented to lose this. Yeah.
Well, this is the Sharks that have lost these players.
Yeah, I know. Yeah. I'm still sorry.
Yeah, but I agree with you about the Bulls. It's because there's no doubt that in this competition, it's a marathon. It's a very cliche thing to say. It's a marathon, not a sprint. But experience is fun. Oh man, experience is really, really vital. And South African, just to try and explain it a little bit, South African youngsters grow up quite sheltered, and that is both that's both from the conservative background that most cultures are in South Africa, black and white, Afrikaans and English speaking, right? But also because the rand is so deflated, so its buying power is much stronger in South Africa, which means it's very difficult to travel overseas. So they don't have a lot of exposure growing up to international travel. And for many of these youngsters who travel in Super Rugby, it's like a huge culture shock. So there's all this kind of stuff to overcome for a Bulls team. The Sharks, when you talk about the Sharks, it's a very interesting animal. And I've long thought that what's happened to the Sharks in the last almost 20 years is that they've caught between 2 stools, right? And that is, for 100 years, the Sharks were known as South Africa's running rugby team. They were known as South Africa's, the Natal region. It's the traditional name for KwaZulu-Natal, it's now called KwaZulu-Natal, was known as the place where running rugby was played. Almost the romantic team when it came to playing running rugby. With the introduction of Ian McIntosh, who brought them their first Currie Cup trophy, came this direct rugby style that he pioneered and championed. And it almost has been as if the Sharks haven't quite known who they are. They have neither really fully embraced their history as being a running rugby team, nor have they been fully a version of the Bulls. They've sort of been neither fish nor fowl. and somebody needs to come along. And Sean Everett is a dyed-in-the-wool Sharks boy, right? A Durban boy. So somebody needs to come along and decide what kind of identity are they, what kind of rugby are they going to play. And they have some of the pieces there, because they will have right, who was very good in the World Cup. They will have Mapimpi, who is extraordinary. His improvement is extraordinary. They will have Corsi, who, let me tell you, that is an amazing wing, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, but 3 of their 4 outside backs are outstanding. If they can get the right kind of ball to them and unleash them, they could do some serious damage.
Yeah, and Cohen Bosch is going to get the number 10 jersey and get to sit there, which is going to be good, rather than getting split between 10 and 15.
Is he going to, in with the Sharks? Is he not moving to the Stormers?
Well, the talk is he's actually going to be in the live chat is that Bosch is going to be announced as the captain of the Sharks. Now, for a player who, hang on for a second, but for a player who Werner Cockes, anyway, for a player who is going to be basically was shielded from the press last year. I think he made like one post-match interview. To make him captain, I think for that young boy is perhaps is a big ask when he's going to have to be doing a lot of press that he's not used to doing. So big. I think a big ask about that, really.
But the only excuse I can see, I mean, to be fair, there are not that many others they could pick from anymore, because they lost a lot of experience. You got to give it to someone.
Yeah, and you got to give it to someone who you know is going to be an automatic first choice.
Yeah, you certainly, when I think of who's left there, there's certainly no standout players that jump to. So if he's the one who's showing leadership, now that is very interesting, and I'll tell you why. For those of you who don't know South African rugby historically, there is a divide in South African rugby between, and excuse that I'm generalizing here, between the traditional way Afrikaners played the game on the high veld, so that's at altitude, to a very forward-orientated game with lots of kicking at altitude. The romantic running rugby that was played in the Sharks region, and then Western Province, which is Cape Town, which is also Afrikaans speaking, especially in the rugby community traditionally, was a bit of a marriage of both. Very good forwards and a preparedness to run the ball. So the fact that they are talking about making what is, although he's got a huge boot, let's be honest, Cohen Bosch kicks a ball a mile, and possibly has one of the most effective kickoffs in world rugby, in the height that he can get in the kickoff.
He is very serious speed too. Serious quick.
But serious speed. And he is a running fly-half. He will attack the line, and he will hit the line. You've seen him play at fullback, what he can do. I hope that that's a portent of how they intend to play. I really do. And Sean Everett was a backline player, right? So if I remember correctly, he was a wing. So, or am I confusing with Sean Payne? I'm sure your listeners will correct me. But that sounds good, because rugby is entertainment. You need to entertain the fans, right?
So,
but maybe a little bit off topic. But I'm always having a trouble. I don't like when the number 10 is the captain. I think because during the kicking, that's when you get the best time to talk to the team.
That's a good point.
I should never ever, and he also got a lot of pressure on his head. He should focus on his kicking during this game, and the captain should focus on.
I agree. For 2 points, as you say. One, they have to do extra training anyway for practicing their kicking after normal training. Then you're adding the media, all the press and the media work on top of that. I don't like my kicker being the captain either. For that as well.
But during the breaks, during the kicking, that's probably the best time. I would also have a chat with the refs too.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, adding on top of what you were saying, there's also that as well. we're running out of time. So the next team to move on to is the Lions, who came fourth last year with 35 points. A bit of a come down from being sort of finalists for a couple of years. They've had massive, yeah. They've had a coaching change with De Bruyne stepping down and Ivan Van Rooyen taking over. So a third coaching change in, was it 4 years, 3 years for them? 2 years?
2 years. So 3 coaches in 2 years.
Which is pretty, well, over 3 seasons, yeah, is big. Again, also the players that are going. Malcolm Marks off to Japan. Erasmus Kruger, Lewis all leaving from the engine room. Quagga Smith off to Japan. And Nick Groom off to Scotland. Then we get into the backs. Mapoe off to France. We've got Ryan Cumbrink is off to France as well. Tambuai off to the Sharks. Mahuza off to Japan.
Did you say?
Yeah, to the Sharks. So a lot of turnover there for players, and you've got to say also that you've and this is on top of about 2 years of losing their best players, or so not necessarily the best players, but a lot of their talent. So
Whiteley coming back.
If at the moment, I think he is, but it's got. I mean, the problem with Whiteley is he tends to miss more games injured than he does fit for.
Let me just point to this out. Whiteley is the best rugby leader in South Africa.
Yep.
It was more important. It was more important for the future of South African rugby that we had Siya Kolisi as the captain for that tournament for the next 30 years. But
but if White hadn't been injured, he would have been captain for that team.
Yes, through 2 or 3 years ago, if he hadn't got injured, he would have been holding that position all this time. But the highest chance of winning that tournament would have been Whiteley as captain, right? Because he is the best rugby leader. He is an incredible uniter of men.
Well, John, I think you're going a little bit too far with your theories here, because he wasn't there and he didn't win. Siya was there and he did win. We can't continue to claim that Whiteley had better merit.
Siya Kolisi was unbelievable, but the point is that for the success of the Lions, if he can manage somehow to stay on the field, right? Because the last time I saw him injured, he was in tears at the last injury. It just was so unbelievable. He comes from Durban. He's very much an English-speaking Glenwood Boys High Durban boy, and the way that he's managed to unite a lot of those Afrikaans speakers, Xhosa speakers, English speakers, he's been outstanding for them in that resurgence of Lions rugby. And of course, he was missing for a huge part of that season last year when they fell from 3-time finalists to a much more lowly position. So with that huge turnover of play, if they have him, make a huge difference.
No, I remember when Whiteley was coaching Springboks for a couple of years. They were tested against France. Was it 2017 to 16? And it was obvious the team was following him like 100%. It looked like a very, very happy team. Very happy team, it looked like. So, and he's so softly spoken. So, I mean, he's probably the most likable South African rugby player too, I would say.
Certainly up there.
Yeah, and as Unbiased Robbie says, Lions will be rebuilding. A good year will be not getting the wooden spoon, but never write them off. Yeah, they are going to be so key. But a lot of other teams are also rebuilding. So I think it's going to be tight at the bottom of the Africa Conference. The final team, though, and this is the team that, remember, Herman said at the beginning in a show previously that are going to win the Super Rugby, even though they came last.
I got $200 on it already.
Even though they came
$200 from Stormers winning. Might be the most stupid money ever, but it might be nice too.
Wait. Lunch is on you, bro.
So
it is indeed if we win.
Okay, so let's just go through some of the changes for them. First off, Robbie Fleck's gone and John Dobson has come in.
Right? Because we didn't mention their name.
Yeah, it's about the Stormers. Yeah. So Robbie Fleck's gone and John Dobson's come in. Again, from the Western Province. So again, an internal promotion. They've lost players like Evan Etzebeth, the Delende.
But also like the two big names they lost, and this is why I'm coming down. But I think Storm is going to have a great season because look at all the other teams, how many players they lost, and Storm has only lost two big ones.
Yeah, you've got well, Etzebeth, Delende, Engelbrecht, are the three kind of that jump out of being sort of key or starting players. They've still got Dylan Lades. They've still got Williams to run the show. Yeah, so as you say, Etzebeth, they missed quite a lot through injury anyway.
And they had Peter Stepp, the Toys is still there. You know, they still have a spine for a really good team. You know, what do you reckon, John? You have a Safa here. Can time go backwards? Can Stormers win?
Robbie Fleck. You know,
that's also great that he's leaving. I haven't met one Stormers fan who liked him.
Robbie Fleck, unfortunately, underperformed. He really did as a coach. And innovation-wise, we didn't. You know, I mentioned earlier that region was traditionally seen as the marriage of both the romantic as well as the pragmatic, hard-nosed forwards, and there was very little innovation and development that was seen out of Robbie Fleck's teams, which didn't sit well with Stormers fans. Stormers fans and Western Province fans are used to their teams, even if they lose, playing exciting and brave rugby, right? Being prepared to move the ball, being prepared to attack into space. And certainly there was no inventive play that we really saw out of the Stormers. The fact that Delende is gone, and this is going to be controversial, is that even though he was very good in the World Cup, make no bones about it, I think it is possibly at Super Rugby level to the benefit of the Stormers that Delende is gone. Because generally, Super Rugby, Delende was where the ball went to die. You know, if you want to get it to your wing, best you skip Delende, right? Because truly, not only did he tend to take the ball up, but his passing was poor. His passing to his outside was poor. Right.
But that seems to be like a sickness of the Stormers for years. Like that, they sometimes probably have like the most talented roots in Super Rugby, and it looked like they couldn't score a try even had to save their mother's life. You know.
And if you know the history of that region's rugby, this is why it sits so badly with their fans, because they were for 100 years the team that scored brilliant tries, right? So this is why it so irks their supporters.
No, are you a Stormers fan, John?
Please, I'm from Durban.
Oh, sorry.
Sorry. Just hang on a second.
No. But just, if you haven't like it, now maybe I'm trying to convince myself more here than actually making a strong point. But looking through the squad, I can see a really strong 15 here.
Yeah, if they get the right coach and they get the right condition.
Because they have so many of the key players. I mean, Kitchef is still there. Peter Stepp, Bongi is still there. You know, I mean,
and Bongi Mbonambi, his improvement last year was
like skyrocket.
I know that Mark's play dipped a little bit. He wasn't the same but still to keep Malcolm Marx out of the starting lineup, unbelievable.
Yeah, and it wasn't even a discussion. In usually South Africa, it would be like quotas of Paraguay, you know, but everyone saw like that.
And Aled Walters, the Welsh conditioning coach, was a physical whatever coach that was brought from Monday. Yeah, what it's strength conditioning, yes. He said when they asked him who did you have the biggest improvement last year, he said he laid down the law to Bongi Mbonambi, and he said his improvement was just off the charts. The work that he put in over the course of the year, and you saw that in his improved performances. You know, and some of the mauling and some of the tries he scored and some of the impact that he had, outstanding. So they've got, and Kitsoff, by the way, Kitsoff is absolutely world class.
Yep.
World class. Right? Just a quiet, unassuming player. So, yeah, they've got in Mbonambi, in Kitsoff, and in Peter Steph du Toit, of course. They've got 3 forwards there that can really make a huge impression. It's just, can they bring youngsters together? Certainly in
Danzig and Willemse, that's a pretty exciting combination, isn't it?
Yes, very much. Willemse is the key, because we know Janches, we now know the potential that's there. But Willemse is the key. That is a very, very gifted rugby player. And if he can take control, if he can bring not only his own skills to bear, because he's very quick on his feet and very dangerous, just missed it now that we were talking about
Cohen
the
Bosch.
fly half. What's that?
Cohen Bosch.
Yeah. But if he can get his outsides going, right? Dylan Blades may not be a top international level player, but he certainly is a quality Super Rugby level player.
I agree.
So
yeah.
So I think basically,
so you see where I'm coming from now, guys. You start seeing where I'm coming from now. This doesn't look bad at all.
You've not even mentioned Khaleesi, who's also there as well.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah,
so yes, we know.
Oh, the captain is coming back. Okay, yeah. Is he okay? Is he okay? Can he play?
So basically, so in summary, we've got the Jaguars that are going to kick on from where they were. The Stormers, who have got.
Sorry.
Go on.
Can see if Khaleesi play. He can walk on water. What are you talking about?
But sorry, Paul. There's one more thing about that. But do you reckon there can be a little uplift in Super Rugby here in South Africa? I mean, from spectator point of view, because you're the world champs now, and you probably are a lot of black people who are interested in rugby now who weren't interested in rugby a year ago.
I would hope so.
I think so. What do you think, Paul?
I said I would hope so.
When I said it was so important for the future of South African rugby that Khaleesi was captain of the World Cup, the impact when it comes to youngsters aspirationally, you'll see in 15 years' time, 15 to 20 years' time. Massive. But I was already seeing, and I took some clips from the stands of things that just thrilled my heart, when let's say when Kitsoff came off after an incredible display against the All Blacks at Newlands, to see a whole bunch of black spectators on their feet cheering him off the field in their Springbok jerseys. When the Beast came off the field at Loftus, to see this mass rank of middle-aged Afrikaners on their feet supporting him off the field, right, after a massive performance. So South Africa has shifted tremendously in the spectator support, and I'm hoping it's going to give a fillip. It's going to give a lift to the enthusiasm of the players and inspire the players. South African fans, if they're behind you, they can lift those teams. They really can lift those teams.
Yeah, by far the best. Jaguars obviously have great atmosphere too when they fill the stadium up a bit.
It stopped you from.
But otherwise, I agree. But the South African teams have by far the best atmosphere in Super Rugby.
I hope one day I get to take the two of you to a game there. That would be cool.
I'm planning going there next year, John.
Good on you. Good on you.
He's going for the Lions.
I'm going to go watch the Lions. I was planning.
Okay, boys. So we've overrun. But so thank you very much, boys. But in summary, the Jaguars is going to kick on from last year. It should be good again. The Stormers, the most settled squad in South Africa, have got the 15 if they keep the players fit to make a good challenge. The Sharks lost a lot of leadership, but not going through perhaps the same rebuilding that the Lions and the Bulls are. So it should probably come mid-table. And then the Lions and the Bulls really fighting it out to see who doesn't get the wooden spoon at the bottom, because they're both in big rebuilding phase at the moment. Is that a fair summary of the conference?
I sign up for that too.
My biggest concern for South African rugby is coaching. It has been thus for many years, but it is really come to the fore when you look at the turnover of coaches and the fact that Puerto Heman is the only one that remains. we do know Swayster Brain. We've got to respect his decision to step down because of stress-related illness. And he was a very good coach. And I think his illness probably affected his ability to coach last year. And in fact, we do know that. But across the board, the big deficit that South Africa has is they don't have a coach that is leading those teams that is somebody like Rassie Erasmus. Right? They just don't have a Razor Robertson or a Warren Gatman heading up any of these teams that are in this competition. And at the end of the day, that may be the thing that counts really against them when it comes to playing New Zealand teams, especially.
Yep.
Absolutely. So thank you very much, boys, for joining me. Sorry we couldn't have some technical issues this evening and couldn't get them on screen, but yes, they are two very handsome fellows, even if Herman is wearing a cardigan. Thank you, everybody. Please do head over to DrivingMaul.com, where you can get all my predictions and various articles that and videos that I'm doing, particularly for my supporters. So thank you very much, everybody. Absolute pleasure. I'll be back tomorrow night with Stephen Harris as we look forward to what the All Blacks, Black Ferns, Maori All Blacks, Black Fern Sevens, and All Black Sevens will be up to. Oh, and also Baby Blacks will be up to this year in 2020.